All right, guys, we're back. There's my old friend Jeff Brown. I'm Tony Castanera, OversteerTV, the podcast. What are we on? Like I think this is going to be number 9 now.
Wow.
And for all of our fan out there who watch us, well, I can't wait. I'm really hopeful this week we'll get into double digits. What do you say?
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get a crooked number up there.
Yeah. I'm going to start clearing my cookies and hitting refresh.
There you go.
Anyway, we had a fun weekend last weekend. We had the NASCAR, we had Indycar. What happened in NASCAR? I gotta admit, I didn't watch the NASCAR race. I had family obligations to take care of. What happened? Anything interesting?
They had a race at where was the place? Illinois or somewhere, to some obscure place that I've never really heard of.
Uh-huh.
And it was a combination like short track kind of race. It was kind of a big short track, I guess you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some interesting racing, just the typical NASCAR. Right now, I'm trying to remember who won it.
That's to me one of the things that's happened with NASCAR. I mean, I'm old, okay, so I remember like when I was young, you never heard anything about NASCAR. Then it started getting kind of popular, and then they got really big, and like everybody knew who won the NASCAR race. And now it's like it's still big. It's still the most popular series in the United States, but it's not like in the zeitgeist of the pop culture right now. Nobody knows who won really. Except for the actual NASCAR fans, the really hardcore fans. Nobody. It's back. It's still a huge number. Bigger than IndyCar, that's for sure. But it's not like it's not a story on ESPN or on any of the on the local news and things like that. It's not popping up on social media. So,
yeah,
and you're a NASCAR fan.
Unless they have a big fight, nobody really knows what's going on anymore. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, NASCAR they keep changing rules. Formats. The qualifying formats, mm-hmm. And they'll change it from week to week, really, and it makes it confusing sometimes. Like mm-hmm. they had weather, so they changed the qualifying format.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there was weather involved in this past race where mm-hmm. it started raining and then it stopped.
As weather, that damn weather does that, man.
Yeah, and the same with the IndyCar race. It actually started raining also, and then stopped. So one thing we know for sure: when it starts raining, that it will eventually stop
raining. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, it's like what I'm saying. Like, you're a NASCAR fan. You watch the race, and you don't even remember who won the race. It was
I think it was Christopher Bell, or
it was one of the newer guys. I know that. I forgot the name.
Yeah, it was a Gibbs car. I think it was Christopher Bell. Mm-hmm. These young guys, they look like they're about 12 years old. Right. Mm-hmm. And they're out there racing and they're winning races. They're really talented young drivers, but nobody can remember their name. Mm-hmm. Like me. I mm-hmm. can't remember their name. I remember the old guys, like the Denny Hamlin and the Kevin Harvick, who's now retired.
Right. And guys who are 20, 30 years younger than us, when they're our age, they're going to be saying the same thing about the new guys in NASCAR. It's just the way it is. I mean,
yeah. So I think right now we're going through this transition from the old school to the new school, where the new drivers are coming up. And mm-hmm. so we're having to learn their names, remember their car numbers, who they drive for, their sponsors.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I remember when there was that big new school thing, and the leader of that was Jeff Gordon. I remember when Jeff Gordon was the young guy, and a bunch of other young drivers came up, and the NASCAR fans weren't too friendly with the young guys, especially Jeff Gordon. I remember when Jeff Gordon was younger in his career, even when he was winning championships. I remember being at Homestead right on the start finish line before pre-race. They introduced Jeff Gordon. The stuff some of the fans were saying, yelling out loud, no fear of being. That was before cancer culture stepped in, and nobody had a cell phone camera. But the stuff I heard that was spewing from the fans. And he had already been champion a bunch of times and everything. And some of the other younger drivers too. Is that stuff still going on, or has it?
Oh yeah, Kyle Busch. I would say Kyle Busch gets that out of all the drivers right now. He's the most hated driver, and it's a situation where if you win too many races, they did that to Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Right.
Dale Earnhardt Sr. won all those races and championships, and he got booed on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, how dare he beat their favorite driver and everything, new guy coming in.
Exactly. And, and Jeff Gordon, he came out of the Midwest. He didn't come out of the South, I remember the old ESPN Thursday Night Thunder. I loved watching Thursday Night Thunder. So, of course, ESPN ruined that and moved it to another night, And I remember Jeff Gordon. He was driving a sprint car, and he was driving for Diet Pepsi, I think it was, in a sprint car, and he went up on two wheels on his side, came back down, went up and won the race. And in victory lane, got out of the car and said, "I want to go NASCAR racing."
No,
and the rest was history.
You see, but the thing I'm trying to point out is, okay, like you mentioned, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, those guys are disliked by a lot of fans. They're the bad boys, but they embrace being a bad boy. Nobody says that Kyle Busch is a nice guy. Okay, nobody's saying Kurt Busch is like, Mr. America. Jeff Gordon was as clean as they come. Okay,
oh yeah,
he was. I mean. He was a pretty boy who always said the right things and everything. Nobody ever said Jeff Gordon was a dirty driver. That never happened. Okay. No. But still the fans hated him. I understand some people are going to, they're going to hate some drivers who are maybe rough or mean or hold, just won't get out of the way, that stuff, I can understand that hatred, but the Jeff Gordon thing, I just never really understood. One day, if I ever run into him again, I'm going to ask him what he thought of all that back in the day. I'm sure he'll give me a very politically correct answer, but
well, maybe if we can go out to the Homestead race this year, we can run into him out there.
Yeah, he'll probably be there.
Well, yeah, he's overseeing the Hendricks. The whole Hendricks operation now. He's the president, CEO of the thing, and basically Rick Hendrick just shows up to the races to watch the races. Everything's being run by Jeff Gordon now.
Right.
He's got this set up to where I guess when he passes, Jeff Gordon is going to take over. I would imagine they would maybe keep the name the same, sort of like McLaren. Or Williams. Why is the team still called Williams when there's nobody named Williams that owns the team? Or how long has Bruce McLaren been dead?
Right. McLaren's has had various owners since his past.
Yeah, but they keep the name.
A fun fact.
Richard Petty. He's getting up there. He's, what is he, late 80s and in great shape. I'm not saying there's any, but eventually he's going to come today when he's not going to be around. And what are they going to do with the team? Because it's actually gone through a bunch of different name changes too. Now this is set up. Jimmy Johnson is now part owner of the Petty Motorsports, and that's why the name has changed. So it's set up to where when he passes, then Jimmy Johnson will be taken over. Like all the old Hendricks drivers now want to have their own teams, and that's why
Well, the McLaren, the reason why McLaren's still called McLaren is when he passed away, ownership was pretty much taken over by Marlboro, the cigarette company, and they wanted to keep. McLaren was a very special name. They wanted to keep the name, and then Marlboro sold it, and Ron Dennis took it over, and then he sold the team. Right now, McLaren's owned by the government of Bahrain. Most people don't know that. Like 60% of the company.
It's being run by Zach Brown.
It's run by Zach Brown, but the ownership is owned by the Bahrain government, some financial hedge fund out of the Bahraini government.
Okay.
Williams
it's
was
like
bought.
Homestead Miami Speedway is owned by the city of Homestead.
Right. Yeah, but the Speedways is leased to NASCAR.
Right, but it's owned by the city of Homestead. The citizens of Homestead, the city of Homestead, own a speedway, and most of them don't even know that.
Yeah. McLaren is owned, and Zach Brown basically works for that hedge fund. He can, I forgot who was in charge of McLaren before Zach Brown, but they fired his ass, and now Zach Brown's there, and he can get fired too. He's like the CEO. Williams was sold to an American hedge fund company, which I can't remember the name now. And so I guess it's on the side of the car, Darlington or something like that. It's an American hedge fund. And they own it. And they figured, why change the name? Williams is a name there.
Oh, but
if somebody walks in if some company comes in with writes a big check, they'll change the name. Yeah. So the same, like when you see NASCAR, you're going to keep Hendrick. If I was to buy the Petty team, I wouldn't want to drop that Petty name. That name is iconic. That name. No matter what happens, no matter how bad your team is, when they say the name Petty, people's ears are gonna, and sponsors will be excited about it too.
What about Stuart Haas? That team is probably just going to be split in several different directions, sold off, or sold at one.
The Chargers are probably going to be sold off. I heard that Dale Jr. Dale Jr. wants to buy two. I heard two of the Chargers. They'll have to change the name on that because Stewart probably wants to keep his name, and Haas is an actual name of a company. They sell, CNC machines and everything. That's where he makes his billions. So they're gonna have to change that name.
And it's, I remember a similar situation. Michael Waltrip, he had a team, several cars, and he went out of business, and that ended up being split in all different directions. The same thing, and there's no Michael Waltrip Racing anymore.
Right. And let's face it, Michael Waltrip's name is, it's, we all know who he was, but he isn't like, he isn't in the pantheon of great names in racing.
The name Waltrip holds a lot of greatness, but it's his brother Daryl.
Yeah, like you hear the name Waltrip, yeah, Michael. Oh,
Now he just runs up and down pit road doing interviews before the race.
Yeah.
Trying to be funny, which is never funny at all.
Yeah, I
think it's funny, but not for those right reasons.
Well, you remember the little attitude problem I had with Michael Waltrip that time. Yeah. He was like, another story. Another day.
I have to remind me of that one.
Yeah.
I've never had any problems with Michael Waltrip. He's always been a nice guy to me.
Yeah. It's him and two guys in NASCAR. Well, Michael Waltrip's Mark Martin. I had my Mark Martin didn't like me and I didn't like him, and
he didn't like me either.
Yeah.
He didn't basically Mark Martin didn't like anybody.
No. I
mean, he was a great driver. I give him props on being a great driver, but as far as a likable person, no.
No.
I can tell you a Mark Martin story if you want.
Oh. No, man, I just ate. Let's save him for when he's, because about once a year he says something really stupid, so we use it then.
Well, he's retired now. He shows up at the races once in a while, and that's fine.
He shows up and goes like, "Peep," and basically saying, "Please remember me."
They might pay him or something like that. I don't know. But he was a great driver. I'll give him that. He had that what they call the Arkansas grip on the steering wheel.
Mm-hmm.
He would with one hand put his elbow up on the bottom of the wheel and turn it, and he would turn it all like this, instead of driving like this.
Yeah, he was pretty much
like this. And I think Dale Jr. was a big Mark Martin fan, and he actually adopted that Arkansas grip style of driving.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but
yeah. Hey, whatever works for you,
Yeah, I mean, he preferred that, so that's what I used to drive one-handed because I saw his father Dale Earnhardt do it. I think it was the last race of North Wilkesboro 400 race. I sat and watched, and Dale Earnhardt drove that entire 400 laps with one hand.
Why?
I don't know why, but the reason why I did it was because I was on the track and my car wouldn't stay in gear. So I had to use my right hand to hold the gear shifter.
Right.
To hold it in gear and then steering with my left hand. And then I realized that I was turning faster laps driving one-handed. So that's what I did.
You should have tried with one eye too. Maybe that made you faster.
Well, what happened was when I'm driving with both hands, I'm oversteering. You get it, oversteer. So I'm oversteering the car. And which is causing you to go slow. Obviously, the less you turn the steering wheel, the faster you go. So with one hand, and I'm pulling down with this left hand, I'm not oversteering the car because I'm putting everything into just trying to get the car turned. And so all of a sudden, I'm not overdriving the car now. And now it's turning better, it's turning faster, and so it worked for me. So that's what I did.
Hialeah Speedway. We got to find somebody from the old Hialeah Speedway and do an interview with him and talk about that place. That'd probably be a pretty interesting interview. I could probably dig somebody up.
Yeah, try to find Pettit or somebody.
Yeah,
he's a good friend of ours.
Yeah, that place was interesting.
I would say Marty Little, but he passed a few years back, and I think Janet, his wife, just passed last year.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know Janet had passed.
Yes, he passed about maybe a year. It hadn't been that long since he passed. But they were super friendly. They really liked Michelle, my wife.
Nice.
Like everybody nice likes Michelle. They don't care for me, but everybody likes Michelle.
No, they were great people. I used to run into them. Well, besides the Speedway, besides Hialeah, we run into a Homestead whenever there's a NASCAR race. Super nice people.
Yeah, loved them to death.
Let's see what else. Oh, IndyCar. You see the Detroit race?
I did see the Detroit race.
Holy crap, was that a mess?
Oh my God. It was, it was super narrow.
Right.
It's like fit two cars side by side down those straightaways. You don't think so. And then they've got like this super 10-mile long straightaway with a hairpin turn at the end of it. And everybody overdrives and just body slamming all. I mean, it was just a mess.
Yeah. Well, the
quite enjoyable.
Yeah. The problem is they used to race at Belle Isle, an island right in the middle of the Detroit River, and it was a great race. It was a pretty good track. But then people start complaining that because it's also a park, that people were complaining about the park being closed for a couple of weeks while they set up, and a couple of weeks they turned down everything. And so basically they kicked IndyCar out of Belle Isle. And this is a very important race for Chevy, which is one of the engine manufacturers, and Penske, who's on the board of Chevy and also runs Chevy engines. Penske is the promoter for the race. They had to have a race in Detroit.
And Penske's based out of Detroit.
Yeah, and so they built this track in downtown Detroit, which is not a very lovely city, picturesque or anything, to say the least. And they built what they could, and it's just a terrible track. In fact, after the race, a lot of the drivers were complaining about it, and to hear an IndyCar driver complain is something big. So many accidents.
The bumps on that, they're going down the straightaway like dolphins jumping in and out of the water, porpoising down the straightaway. It was,
the only thing I like about the track was the pit lane. It was a double pit lane. Half the cars on one side, half the cars on the other.
I've never seen that before.
That made it
was very interesting.
I like that. I would like to see that at other tracks. That was fun to watch. But the race itself, and then after all that bumping and crashing and everything, it turns into a fuel mile race, which, oh God.
Yeah, I hate that. Let's see who can go slower. And that was the NASCAR race too. Yeah, it was to see who could go the slowest.
You have, who can go the slowest, and Scott Dixon, who's a genius at that. Great, good for him. He's one of the winningest drivers in IndyCar history. But nobody's going, man, that was some exciting fuel miles race there. They tried, I was trying to make it exciting, but it's like nobody goes. It's not the Prius 200, okay?
It's like the opposite of what racing is supposed to be.
Right.
Let's see who can go slowest and save the most gas. Yeah. I'm like, no, I'll go fast and make an extra pit stop and lose that way instead.
Yeah, so so Dixon won, and good for him. Great for him. But the IndyCar's got to do something. I hate fuel miles races. They say they're going to get rid of them, but
thank goodness for Ferrucci.
Oh, Ferrucci.
For AJ Foyt. I mean, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even want to watch the race. The kid is just devil may care attitude. I'll go and wreck whoever I want. My boss is AJ Foyt. Go talk to him.
He's definitely old school.
I want to fight with AJ Foyt. It's never happened.
Yeah, he's had that accident early in the race, and to me, it wasn't his fault. But IndyCar, for other reasons, decided to penalize him. And he still made it up in the top 10, even though he was sent to the back.
Practice. It was
practice. Also, he had some accidents too, but
he was just all over the place. He was just slamming people, running into people. He just didn't care.
No.
I remember the guy tried to, the other driver came talk to him after practice, and he just jumped up and shoved him out of his pit. He didn't care what he had to say, and just got up and started shoving the guy.
Yeah, something that AJ Foyt would have done too if somebody came into his pit when he was driving.
Oh, I can remember AJ. You didn't mess with AJ Foyt.
Ask who was it that he beat up on TV? Was it Eddie Cheever, or was it Ari Lyondike who came and complained to AJ? And
I think it was both. At some point, it was both.
just slapped him right on national television. It was hilarious.
You look up and you see AJ Foyt charging down to down to victory lane, and you're not driving for him. You're in trouble.
Yeah.
Better start running. I mean, he's really old now, but I still wouldn't.
I wouldn't mess with that guy.
I wouldn't mess with him. I remember we interviewed him one time in Homestead, and we asked like 3 or 4 people beforehand if it was going to be okay, and then even then, before we started the interview, we're like, "Are you sure, AJ? Don't beat us up,
No, but he was great.
He's one of those guys that you got to be real careful when you go to approach.
Yeah, he was great though.
He was great. He was great.
I never had a problem with him. So the big
scared the hell out of me.
Yeah. The big story after the race was just people are stupid. You had that French driver Theo Pourchaire one of his first IndyCar races, he got into an accident with Augustin Canapino. Now, Canapino races for Juncos Hollinger Racing. Canapino's from Argentina. Pourchaire was a new driver for McLaren. It looked like Pourchaire got into Canapino. It happens. Okay, everybody's hit everybody on a track. Sooner or later, you're going to hit somebody. Everything. But the Canapino fans, I mean, they became unhinged, and they were literally on Twitter, well, X now, and other places. They were messaging Pourchaire death threats.
Let me get it straight. The Argentina drivers fans were threatening the French drivers
fans. Yeah, the French driver, the driver, not the fans, the driver, the French driver. So Canapino fans were threatening the French driver Pourchaire.
Right.
You know, and of course, people were saying, "Oh no, we can't have this." People were saying, "We don't stand for this. People need to stop." But then the thing was that Pourchaire, driving for McLaren has a partnership with Junkers Hollinger Racing, and they were kind of working together. You know, some IndyCars team up to help each other out and stuff like that. But because of this, now Junkers Hollinger, McLaren said, "No, get away from us. We don't want to be associated with you." So not only does it look bad, it hurts the team financially because McLaren's a big, rich, multi-million-dollar team, where the Junkers Hollinger is a small team, and so now they got hurt. That hurt in the pocketbook. And you know, we've all said stupid things, and we've all done stupid things. You know, I'm not a fan of cancel culture, stuff like that. But Jesus, you don't threaten. I wake up saying stupid things, but death threats. I mean, you know, I don't understand that mentality. Like, I've gone to football games and I see people get drunk and say the stupidest things, you know. Yeah. and I mean, who gets into a fight at a football game? Who gets into a fight at a race? I mean, people need to chill.
All the time.
Happens all the time, and it's still perplexing. You know.
Well, it's alcohol. When alcohol's involved,
right,
there's going to be fighting to follow.
Right. That I understand. That happens, I know, but Jesus, on social media, what gets me is also people are so stupid. You're going to send a death threat. I'm sorry, but threatening somebody's life is against the law. And what you think because your photo's not on your Twitter feed is they're not going to find out who sent it. People are just so ignorant, you know what I mean?
I've never heard of this driver before, but evidently he has a lot of loyal fans in Argentina that will kill people.
In Argentina, he is a huge sports car driver. He is like one of the best drivers out of Argentina, at least in Argentina. The man's really famous. I mean,
you say so. You know. I guess I'll be getting death threats now too from our one Argentina fan.
Yeah. Well, it's like this Theo Pourchaire guy, the French guy who drove for McLaren. He was a Formula 2 champion. I mean, he's just waiting for a space to come available in Formula 1. This kid's good too. You never heard of him, but in this country, you're not going to hear about him. But they're great race car drivers everywhere. But you know, fans really need to take a chill. Let's just relax.
Yeah, it's just one race. It's not the end of the world.
And when it all comes down to it, they really don't. They're not going to end their lives over this. So why are you trying to do it too? Okay.
Yeah. Nobody died. It's going to be okay. Everybody can calm down.
Yeah, they're all going to get paid. They're all going to be happy. Life goes on.
I don't know about happy, but they're going to live.
And if you really, 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 really need to vent, just watch our podcast and send us those death threats. Okay.
Yeah.
I like them. They excite me. Oh God, with that, we got to end this stuff. This is going to get
Be careful
dangerous.
what you wish for, Tony.
This is rainy. So you heard it, guys. Watch the video, click like, click subscribe. You can do it. It'll help us, and you'll hear more and more from us.
Go to the comment section and threaten our lives.
Yeah. And I promise you, if we get the double digits, Jeff will do the next show shirtless.
They don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that.
But he'll wear tassels, so YouTube won't censor us. Okay, with that, we're done.
I'm already pantsless, so it was just taking off the shirt.
We're done. Watch us next week. I'm Tony Castner. That's Jeff Brown. See you guys later.
Later, guys.